Yo guys, welcome to my Death Oath build guide. In this video I'm just going to be going over some pros and cons with some mapping footage in the back and breaking down my loot and showing you guys how this build works. Without further ado, here we go. Start off, this is like one of my favorite builds for like mapping and stuff. It's not the greatest for bosses, but it's really quick as a mapper. It takes a bit to get this build going, but once you get it going, it's really smooth. I ended up leveling with Essence Drain Contagion until I can put on Death Oath. I'll have like two different maps going in the back, one with less effective curse and one just normal, so you'll see the difference. Because it's one of the downsides of the build is less curse on maps. You can still do them, but you'll definitely notice a difference. So let's talk about the upsides of this build. As I mentioned before, it's a fantastic, great mapper. Just blows up a screen if there's enough monsters. You can kill the map bosses pretty decently once you get some decent gear for it. Not like crazy gear, but just some. Can do all mods. A couple of them are a little rough, but not that big of a deal. It's immune to reflect, stuff like that. Health of extra ES is nothing for this build since it's all chaos damage and ignores energy shield anyway. This build is super smooth once you get going. You literally just shield charge everywhere, and then you'll use Blight for single target to debuff the monster so you do more damage. This build is great at running Heist, Blight, Ritual, and if they ever bring back Ultimatum, it was great for that. I used this build in Ultimatum League. It was great at doing the Ultimatum thing, it just sucked at doing the boss. This build is fairly cheap to get going. I'd probably put 7 Divines, maybe 6 into this build. And I can definitely put more, but for what my character was designed for, it does the job perfectly well right now. Even though I have a low HP pool, I have lots of mitigation, but I'll go over that when I talk about the gear portion of the video. There are a few cons to the build as well. You need some gear to get it going to make it feel smooth. You'll be pretty squishy until you get a few things set up for the build, and then you'll notice that your survivability will go up a lot. This build is terrible for bossing. There's definitely better bossing builds out there for sure. You might be able to unlock all your watchstones with this if you know the fights well. I did Eater of Worlds fine, and I forget what the other guy's called that has like the Frogger stuff going on, but I had help with him, but he wasn't too bad either. And even though this build can do all map mods, there's a few of them that are really annoying. One is less effective your curses, and the other one is no regen. With the no regen one, you'll have to swap out your flask for an enduring mana flask, and you'll be good to go. And then the less effective curses, we rely a lot on despair for our damage, and yeah, that just gimps our damage pretty good. So that's like the pros and the cons of the build. Let's get into the gear and gems and how I have this build set up. Alrighty guys, we're gonna go over the gear and the passive tree portion of the video. Just to show you guys how I've built this character, and I'll show you guys some upgrades and how I crafted a couple of my gear items and stuff. So here we go. So we are using Death Oath. So this armor, when you equip it, has a aura on that does like AoE damage, like fairly big, as I showed you in the video. So this is what this build's built around. So every gem in this armor is going to affect that Death's Aura skill. And then notice that you take 450 chaos damage per second when you kill somebody. So just, you need to max your chaos res as well, or that can get kind of chunky. So we're built around Death's Oath, but we needed like a little support. I've heard of people using Poison Arrow or Caustic Arrow or whatever it's called now. I wasn't a huge fan of that because I like to shield charge around everywhere, where Blink Arrow is kind of especially for the way that life tap works in this. So we use Blight as well, but it's mainly around Death's Oath. And so for my gear, for my shield, I just mainly had a shield to fill out my resist, because they're kind of gear starred resist wise. I would love to be able to dual wield in this, because wands can increase your damage quite a bit. But yeah, that's it. Boots are nothing special. I haven't got a good Eldritch mod or whatever on them, but the increased damage per endurance charge helps because we run 3 endurance charges, so that's 12% increased damage, which is pretty good for boots. But I was mainly just trying to fill out my resist, get some movement speed and some life. Same with belt, just resist, life, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I could probably get a better belt. A Abyss belt would be, or whatever it's called, Stygian Vise would be a lot better, then you can put a gem in there with like damage over time. But for what I wanted with this character, my damage is pretty good, and I wanted to farm up for a boss killer, so all my money's going to him. Same with gloves. I was mainly just filling out my resist. These gloves are awful, but they do what I need them to do. Is like, obviously I can get another like 60 life, some resist, maybe some attack speed if I was looking at it, but once again, I'm trying to get implicits for this as well, and obviously none of those are any good, but we'll get there eventually. For my weapon, I crafted this weapon, so all I did is bought a fractured one with damage over time multiplier. That one cost me like 15C, and then I delve crafted it using, I think it's Aberrath fossils, the ones that give you more chaos modifiers. So I bought like 20 of those, 20 or 40 of those, and some one socket resonators, and then just spam this until I got chaos damage over time multiplier. I was lucky and got an open prefix, so I can put chaos damage on it. So this one adds like a lot of damage, like 50 multiplier and increased damage as well. So that's pretty crazy. So that'll increase your damage a lot. For my helmet, I use Viridia's Veil. Make sure you get a +2 one. If you're looking for more damage, get Despair Curse Effect for an enchant, but those are like 3 divines. But yeah, we use this for damage against me is unlucky, so that means that whenever I get hit, that damage would roll twice, and whatever that lower number is what I'll take for damage. And it'll also have, if you have a magic ring on the left or right slot, you're either immune to crit or immune to curses. So we have these rings, so all I did was look for an Iolite ring and crafted minimum endurance charge, so you need an open suffix with some life. I just bought a couple of these and alt spammed them, and then if I got a decent life roll on something else, I just tried to annul off the other one. And so that's pretty much it for those rings. So having the 2 blue rings on will make me immune to crits and immune to curses, so those map mobs no longer matter. You can have monsters have a guaranteed % chance to crit, you'll never get crit. So it's really nice for that. So that gives us a lot of our mitigation, and then the 2 endurance charges. We get 2 from the rings, and then I haven't went over the tree yet, but we get this node here that gives us 1, so it also gives damage per endurance charge, so those actually give us 24% increased damage with 3 endurance charges. So that's pretty good as well. And then for our amulet, we use In Presence with Despair. This allows us to run both of our curses, so we use Despair and Enfeeble, and yeah, and that gives us damage over time and whatnot. So for my gem setup, for Death's Oath, we use Swift Affliction, less duration. I haven't tried to corrupt these yet. Void Manip, Life Tap, increased area of effect and efficacy. If you're looking for more damage, you can get Awakened area of effect. Excuse me, I got hiccups. That will just squeeze out some more damage. If you're looking to get into maybe doing like just regular bosses, this character could probably do it, but you're going to need more damage, but you can do Awaken area of effect. So the way life tap works is when you have the buff on, you do like more damage, I think it is 19% more, but we can't like trigger it with Death's Oath because we don't cast it or anything. So this is where we use shield charge. So we have shield charge with a level 1 life tap. So that makes it so it costs life instead of mana. You only need it at level 1 because we're literally just looking for the buff. So when I use shield charge, life taps up, that triggers this one, and then you're good to go. And then Arcane Surge and faster attacks. So you don't really need Arcane Surge because you got to cast a lot of these to get it. Or actually, it doesn't even work. I didn't realize this. I guess I'm dumb. But you have to spend mana. But since life tap is life, that'll never trigger. But I got Arcane Surge over here with Dash. So I like Dash because it's a better movement skill than Shield Charge. So I would go like Dash, Second Wind, and Arcane Surge or something. But whenever you use Dash, you get Arcane Surge. So usually when I go into a boss fight, I'll Dash, Shield Charge, gives me both my buffs that increase the damage of that. Blight for at least a second for Infused Channeling, and then that's where I get a lot of my damage from. Usually the boss will die usually. But that's for my chest, and then I just showed you guys my gems for that. Don't use Arcane Surge in here, obviously useless, but faster attacks is good. If Fortify was good, it would be good in here, but we don't do enough damage for that. For my boots, I use Blight, Infused Channeling, so that once you infuse channel enough, that increases your chaos damage. So it also increases the damage of the aura from Death's Oath. So we go with that. You don't need to have it up too long, but just like a second. Use Valblight as well, because when you do the bosses, you want to get all your buffs up, hit them with Valblight, and then they take increased chaos damage. And then efficacy and controlled destruction. For my wand, I just have Steel Skin and Portal. Just put Steel Skin on your left click, then when you run around it will pop up and just gives us a little bit more mitigation. It's not a whole lot, but it does the trick. But 2,000 damage it'll absorb, so. And then for my helmet, this is where we have our curses in. Because of the +2 levels to socketed gems, we use an enhance. Ideally, you would want a level 4. This increases the quality of my gems by 32%. If we had a level 4 one, I believe that goes up to 40, which is pretty nuts. So we have Blasphemy, which it won't affect this, but make sure you flip it for the 20% because it gives curse effect. We have Despair at 52% quality, I think. I believe that's what it's at. Yeah, 52. So what that will do is quality will increase the damage over time effects on the monster as well. Nope, that's it. So damage over time, so 26% increased damage, which is also modified by curse effect. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we have Enfeeble. I haven't got around to qualitying this up yet, but this will make it so monsters won't hit you as hard and they deal less damage and stuff, which helps for tankiness as well. So if I go into my character panel for Despair, you will notice that curse effect is at 207%. It can go up to 237 with a helm enchant, but for what I'm looking for, it's not that big of a deal. So as I mentioned earlier, having less curse effect on maps really gimps your damage a lot. And then for Flask, I just have an instant one, a bleed removal one, and then I have a Quicksilver with avoid being stunned, because stun is really annoying. If you're trying to like shield charge and stuff through a pack, and then you get stunned, it sucks. And then I have a Sulfur Flask for increased damage, and then a Granite Flask for increased tankiness. I just have use when adjacent flask is used, and then these two are when charges are full. So whenever, like, say I hit number 4, it'll use the Granite as well. So it doesn't really matter at that point, but just make sure one of them at least has use when charges are full. You don't even have to worry about your flask going through maps. And that, yeah. So that's it for the gear portion of the video. And then for the tree, actually, let's talk about Pantheon first. So you can use whatever's comfortable for you for the small ones, but I just use the life flask regen. I just find it helps. If you're in a little bit of a pickle, you can hide in the corner for a bit and wait for the flask to charge. I noticed that up with the maps and stuff with the Wake of Calandra and whatnot, because you don't want to waste portals, because later on in the maps they hit you pretty hard. And this, where you notice like the downfalls of this build, is when stuff gets super tanky and whatnot. And then I would recommend Soul of the Brine King, and make sure you get Cannot Be Frozen. That is absolutely annoying until you get that, because it just, nothing worse than shield charging through a pack, getting frozen, and everything just starts whacking on you. Like, movement is like a big defensive part of this build, so you don't constantly get hit. You kind of got to like dart around the monsters a little bit until you get enough gear where you can tank them. And then yeah, you can probably get the reduced effect of chill on you. I don't really notice that one too much because you can usually dash out of it. But yeah, and then you can just pick a small one. I think there's one that that has reduced chaos damage taken over time or something. You could probably do that one, but it's not that big of a deal like I mentioned before. And then for the skill tree, we do use a lot of cluster jewels. I do have an empty jewel socket here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get something yet. But essentially, to start, you just kind of want to get all your life nodes, get chaos nodes and stuff, damage over time nodes, I kind of just filled out the part of the tree that didn't require the cluster jewels. I'll have a link to my tree in the description as well. And then you'll probably be sitting on some passive points for a while, especially at the league start, because you're going to need to get these jewels. So this is where like a big part of my damage comes from. So for a large jewel, you want Touch of Cruelty and Wicked Pow. And try to get like Dex and Elemental Resist on them too. Just makes your gearing a lot easier, as you're kind of a little bit Dex starved. Like I can't fully level up Dash, which isn't that big of a deal, but just to throw that out there. So Wicked Paw increased chaos damage and then skill effect duration. And then Touch of Cruelty. Enemies hindered by you take 10% increased chaos damage, which is one of the reasons why Blight is so good. So if you hit them with Val Blight with this one, and I think I got it on the other one, they take 40% increased damage for like 8 seconds. So you kind of want to like quickly burn down the enemy with that. And then for a medium jewel, we have Brood for Potency and Flow of Life. So Brood for Potency is going to give us damage over time and more flash charges and stuff. And better flash healing. Just to kind of like, oh, I just got hit, instant flask, and I'm pretty much full again. And then Flow of Life gets damage over time, max life, and some regen. We need a little bit of regen to mitigate that chaos damage that we take from Death's Oath, because it gives us damage over time to us every time we kill something. Just make sure they're either 4 or 5. Because with 5 you can just skip a little node, and then this one just make sure it's 8, so it saves you all your passives, so you don't have to level as much. And then Misery Everlasting is what you want for your small clusters. That gives Despair Curse Effect, and then you get a little bit of Curse Effect with the small node. I just went, like I said, all attributes and tried to get a little bit of Dex. And then same with this one, Despair, 2 to all attributes, all resists again. These weren't that expensive. They're like 20C. I think the large ones were like 50, and these were like 30 or 40, if I remember correctly. And then down at the bottom here, we pretty much had the same thing. So Wicked Pow, just for chaos damage, Touch Cruelty, a little bit more damage, and then Brood for Potency. And then Flow of Life just gives regen, gives some life, some damage over time. Like I said, this one's a 5-socket one, I think. So I just skipped this little one here. And then Misery Everlasting again with all res, chaos res, and stuff like that. Same with this one, Flow of Life, Brood for Potency, Misery Everlasting, and then Lightning res. And then essentially we want to get these aura nodes, because effective non-curse auras actually affects the damage of your Death's Oath aura, because it's considered an aura. So we get these, and then a little bit of, I think there's some reserve here, so we can get a little bit of mana to shield charge around and stuff. If you wanted to take this character up a few more levels, I'm at 95 right now, you can grab this jewel socket. Or if you go up another 2 levels after that, you can grab another one of these clusters as well. There's also the jewel socket here. You want to get Transcendent Mind and put it here. It gives us like, not sure how much multi, but it gives us a bunch of damage over time multiplier, like 20 or 30% or something. It's pretty good. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my build. I enjoy this build. It's just fun for mapping, terrible for bosses, but not everything has to be great at everything. Oh, I should go over my ascendancy here. So for the first 2 ascendancies, I went down to here, so Void Beacon and Withering Presence. This will give you your chaos res for when you're ready to transition into Death's Oath with ED, and this will also buff your ED damage, because it'll start to fall off by the time this point. And then for the next ones, I went with this one, because you want to get the pops, because right when you get this, then you can transition to Death's Oath, and it will feel so smooth, because you just shield charge everywhere, everything will explode and die. And then you don't have to get Malediction until you get your amulet, because you can't really run 2 curses. But this will give you a curse effect, and then Malediction, which reduces damage taken, I think, or damage they deal by 10%. Oh, it's at the bottom there. So to make it a little bit more tanky, but once you can use Enfeeble, then yeah, that's pretty much it. But that's pretty much it for the build guide. I really enjoy this build. It's a lot of fun. It's a great league starter for building up currency, especially when this league was first launched. It was pretty bad for that. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. It'll help the channel out a lot. Thanks for watching, and have yourselves a great day.